All right, diving headfirst into sourcing from Vietnam. Smart move. But before we get too far down the road, anyone importing from Vietnam, actually, anyone involved in international trade, really has got to understand Incoterms.
Couldn't agree more. They're really the unsung heroes of global commerce.
Yeah, like a secret code that makes sure everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. They prevent so many misunderstandings. Seriously, you don't want to be in a situation where you think the seller's handling shipping to your warehouse, but they think they're done once the goods leave their factory.
Oh, can you imagine the logistical nightmare?
Total
So
disaster.
Incoterms are like this universal language. They spell out exactly who does what and when throughout the journey.
Exactly. They're the rule book for transport, insurance, customs duties, the whole nine yards. And today we're tackling four key Incoterms, super relevant for sourcing from Vietnam: EXW, FOB, DDP, and CFR.
Perfect. And our trusty guide for this deep dive.
It's the Navigating Trade Terms with Vietnam Incoterms Guide.
Love it. Okay, let's start cracking the code. EXW, that's X works, right? Sounds like it puts the buyer in charge.
It absolutely does. With EXW, you're owning the entire shipping process. The second those goods leave the supplier's factory in Vietnam, it's all you, baby.
Wow, okay, so if I'm, I don't know, sourcing those amazing hand-woven baskets I saw online, I'm arranging everything myself. Trucks, paperwork, the works.
The whole shebang. And while EXW can mean a lower initial cost, it also requires, well, a pretty deep understanding of importing. Before you jump in, gotta factor in the total landed cost. That includes all those hidden costs like freight, insurance, customs duties.
Gotcha. Kind of like those budget airlines. Initial ticket price looks great, but then, bam, baggage fees, seat selection, you end up wishing you'd just booked the direct flight. So EXW is more for seasoned importers who've got the know-how and the resources to navigate all that.
Exactly. If you're new to importing or working with limited resources, might want to consider other options that offer a bit more support.
Okay, let's explore those options then. What about FOB? Free on board. Heard that's pretty popular for Vietnam sourcing. What's the deal with this one?
With FOB, the seller takes on a bit more responsibility. They're handling getting your goods loaded onto the ship at the Vietnamese port. They sort out those initial export procedures. After that, you're steering the ship.
Okay, I'm picturing it like splitting a road trip. The seller drives the first leg, gets those baskets to the port safe and sound. Then I take over, navigating the ocean voyage, customs, all that. Shared journey, but with, like, clear roles.
Exactly. And there's a great example in our source material, really shows the benefits of this shared responsibility. This company sourcing electronics from Vietnam, they were initially using EXW and were just drowning in unexpected costs. They switched to FOB and it streamlined everything, saved them a bunch of money.
Wow, powerful testimonial. So FOB is like a good middle ground. More control over shipping and insurance, but without all those upfront logistics headaches.
It's all about finding that right balance, right? What works for your specific needs and resources.
Makes sense. All right, moving right along. DDP, or Delivered Duty Paid. This sounds like the VIP experience of international trade.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much as easy as it gets. Picture this. You place the order and the seller handles everything. Shipping, insurance, customs clearance, the works. Those baskets arrive at your warehouse, duties paid, paperwork done, ready to go.
Seriously. No stress. Got to be a catch, right? What's the price tag on this convenience?
Well, convenience does come at a price. DDP usually has the highest price tag since the seller absorbs all the costs and risks to get those goods to you.
I see. Like having a personal shopper and logistics expert all rolled into one. So if I'm sourcing, I don't know, a delicate high-value item like a silk tapestry, maybe that peace of mind DDP offers is worth it.
Could be. Again, it's all about assessing your priorities and picking the Incoterm that fits your needs and your budget.
All right. Last but not least, let's tackle CFR, or cost and freight. Now this one sounds a bit mysterious. What's the story here?
CFR is really relevant for sea freight, which is huge when you're sourcing from Vietnam. Think of it as a hybrid. The seller covers the cost of ocean freight to your destination port, but once it's on the ship, it's your baby.
Okay, so back to our basket example. The seller pays for the ocean voyage, but I'm on the hook for everything once they hit my port. Insurance, unloading, customs, all that.
You got it. With CFR, it's super important to know exactly where that responsibility shifts.
Hmm.
Make sure you've got insurance from that point on. Kind of like sharing a taxi, you split the fare, but you're still responsible for your own belongings.
Okay, I see. It's not just about who pays for what, it's about understanding where the responsibility changes, and making sure you're covered if anything unexpected happens.
That's the key. And that's exactly what we'll be digging into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about potential pitfalls with each Incoterm, give you the knowledge to make smart decisions for your sourcing ventures.
Back for more Incoterm adventures. We've broken down EXW, FOB, DDP, and CFR, but like any good adventure, there's some potential hazards to watch out for. What are
Yeah.
some of the common traps, those things that could trip up even a seasoned importer?
Oh, there are a few. One that pops up a lot, especially with EXW, is underestimating those sneaky hidden costs. You might find an amazing deal on, let's say, those gorgeous ceramic vases from Vietnam, and then wham, unexpected freight charges, insurance, customs duties.
Oof, yeah. Sounds like a real budget buster. Any tips on avoiding that trap? Is there like a way to get a realistic cost estimate up front if you're, going the EXW route?
Definitely. Research and planning are key here. Before you commit to EXW, do your homework. Get quotes from freight forwarders, customs brokers, insurance providers. Really understand the import regulations for your country. Those can add up fast. It's like planning a cross-country road trip. You wouldn't hit the gas without mapping your route, budgeting for gas, tolls, maybe even factoring in a few unplanned detours, right?
I love that analogy. Okay, let's switch gears to FOB. We talked about that shared responsibility, but where exactly does that risk, like, officially transfer from seller to buyer?
With FOB, the seller's responsibility ends when those goods are safely loaded onto the ship at the Vietnamese port. From there, you, as the buyer, are in the hot seat. Any damage during the ocean voyage, delays due to port congestion, that's all on you.
I see. Makes sense, but doesn't that make FOB, well, kind of risky for fragile items? What are some safeguards to consider?
That's a smart question, and that's where cargo insurance is absolutely essential. A good freight forwarder can be invaluable here. Think of them as your seasoned travel guide. They'll help you navigate the ins and outs of marine insurance and make sure you've got the right coverage for your precious cargo.
So FOBs may be better for durable goods like textiles or furniture, but extra caution is needed for delicate items.
Got it. What about DDP? Any situations where this seemingly hassle-free option could backfire? I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true. You're right to be cautious. While DDP does offer ultimate convenience, there are some potential downsides. First, as we discussed, it usually comes with the highest price tag, since the seller's baking all those costs into their quote. But there's also the control factor. With DDP, you're handing over the reins of the entire shipping process.
So if I'm really particular about how my goods are shipped, or if I, say, want to use a specific carrier, DDP might not be the best fit.
Exactly. It's like hiring a caterer for a party. You get delicious food without lifting a finger, but you might not have much say in the menu or presentation.
Okay, trade-offs, trade-offs. DDP is great for peace of mind and convenience, but maybe not for those who want to, like, micromanage every detail. Now, last one, CFR. Any hidden costs or challenges I should be aware of with this option?
Yeah, one thing to remember with CFR is that while the seller covers the freight to your port, they're not responsible for unloading it once it arrives. So even though they paid to get those textiles from Vietnam to, let's say, Long Beach, you'll need to arrange and pay for unloading, and that can be a hefty expense, especially for large or bulky shipments.
Right, if I'm importing a container full of furniture, I got to think about cranes, stevedores, all that. Those hidden costs can really sneak up on you.
They definitely can, and that's why it's so important to read the fine print, understand all the costs involved before you commit to any Incoterm, like signing a lease, right? You don't just look at the monthly rent. You check those extra fees, those clauses, avoid those surprises later on.
Good point. All right, we've covered some potential pitfalls, underestimating landed costs with EXW, assuming risk with FOB, giving up control with DDP, and those sneaky unloading fees with CFR. Now, can we talk about the flip side? When is each of these Incoterms the perfect choice?
Of course. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job. EXW can be fantastic for experienced importers who have the resources, the know-how to manage everything themselves. Maybe they've got existing relationships with freight forwarders, customs brokers. They're comfortable with all the paperwork, logistics. They often get lower upfront costs and keep complete control.
Like being your own general contractor when you're building a house. You get to choose your subcontractors, make all the decisions, but it requires a lot of knowledge and hands-on involvement.
Spot on. Now, FOB, that strikes a nice balance between control and convenience. It's a popular choice for folks sourcing from Vietnam because they're sharing the responsibility, but still get to control things like shipping and insurance. They can choose their carrier, negotiate rates, customize their coverage.
So FOB is like collaborating with an interior designer. You share the vision, work together, but you still have final say on those key elements.
I like that. Now, DDP, that's like hiring a full-service moving company. You pack your stuff, they handle everything else. Loading, transport, unloading, even unpacking in your new place. Ultimate peace of mind, but as we said, it comes at a price.
So DDP is perfect if convenience is king, and you're willing to pay for a smooth, worry-free experience. What about CFR? When does this hybrid approach really shine?
CFR is a great fit for bulk shipments, especially those moving by sea. Think raw materials like coffee beans, rice, or large quantities of manufactured goods like textiles, furniture. Because the seller is covering the ocean freight, the buyer can often negotiate better rates, particularly if they have strong relationships with shipping lines.
So CFR is like joining a carpool. You're sharing the ride, splitting the gas cost, which can be way more affordable than driving solo, especially for long distances.
Another great analogy, and it really highlights the importance of picking the right Incoterm based on your cargo, your budget, and your comfort level with risk. Each option has its pluses and minuses. Gotta weigh them carefully before you make a decision.
Okay, we've explored the good, the bad, the potentially ugly, the pitfalls, the ideal scenarios, the whole shebang. I bet our listeners are ready to learn how to put this knowledge into practice. What factors should they be thinking about when they're choosing the right Incoterm for their specific situation? Any, any secret weapons or expert tips to share?
Those are great questions, and that's exactly what we'll be covering in the final part of our Incoterm deep dive. We'll equip you with the tools and resources you need to confidently navigate this complex world and make informed decisions that, really align with your business goals.
Welcome back. Final leg of our Incoterm journey. We've decoded the acronyms, navigated the pitfalls, weighed the pros and cons. Now let's give you the tools to confidently choose the right Incoterm for your specific sourcing needs.
Absolutely. We've given you all the puzzle pieces. Now it's time to put them together, create a clear picture of what works for you.
Perfect. Okay, let's pretend I'm a listener. Say I'm a small business owner, brand new to importing, and I'm looking to source, I don't know, a small batch of handmade textiles from Vietnam. What are the top things I should be thinking about as I'm looking at my Incoterm options?
Okay, well, first things first, experience and resources. Since you're new to importing, a more hands-off approach like DDP, yeah, it might be worth the extra cost. Could save you a ton of time and headaches, especially if you don't have a big team to handle the logistics.
Makes sense. But what if I'm, bootstrapping my business? Every dollar counts. Is DDP even an option then?
It all comes down to careful budgeting, right? If you're working with a tight budget, yeah, exploring FOB or CFR could be more cost-effective. But got to remember, those options require more work on your end. You'll need to arrange freight, get insurance, handle customs yourself, or find reliable partners who can help with those things.
So it's a trade-off. Convenience versus cost savings. Are there other factors to consider when I'm choosing between FOB and CFR, since they both involve splitting responsibilities?
For sure. Think about your comfort level with risk. With FOB, the risk shifts to you once the goods are on the ship in Vietnam. So any damages, delays during the ocean voyage, that's your responsibility. CFR offers a little more protection. The seller covers the cost of freight to your port, but you still have to handle unloading, and that can be a big expense, especially with large shipments.
Okay, starting to see how choosing the right Incoterm is like assembling a team of superheroes, right?
Right.
Each one has strengths, weaknesses, and the best combo depends on the mission. What if I'm sourcing something, I don't know, something delicate or with strict quality control? Does that affect my Incoterm choice?
It absolutely does. For fragile or high-value items, yeah, DDP might be the safest bet, even if it costs more. You minimize the risk of damage, and it's a smoother delivery. But if you need that tight control over quality checks, inspections, FOB might be better because you can have your own people oversee the loading in Vietnam.
Makes sense. So those hand-painted silk lanterns I saw online, DDP would give me peace of mind. But for a bulk order of, I don't know, coffee beans, CFR makes more sense because I can focus on checking the quality at my port.
Exactly. It's all about aligning your Incoterm with your product and your priorities. And don't forget, there's no shame in asking for expert advice. Freight forwarders, customs brokers, trade consultants, they're like Sherpas. They can guide you through the tricky parts of international trade to help you avoid those costly mistakes.
Like having a personal trainer for importing. They make a custom plan based on your goals.
Love it. And speaking of resources, our guide, Navigating Trade Terms with Vietnam, mentions a great podcast, goes even deeper into Incoterms. They interview experienced importers, share real-world stories, offer tips on negotiating with suppliers. It's a gold mine of info for anyone serious about mastering this stuff.
I love that. One deep dive leads to another. So we've given you the knowledge, practical examples, even pointed you towards more resources. What's the key takeaway for listeners starting their sourcing journey in Vietnam?
I'd say it's this. Choosing the right Incoterm isn't about finding the cheapest option. It's about making a smart choice, one that aligns with your business goals, your comfort level with risk, your logistics capabilities, and your specific product. It's about taking control of your sourcing journey and setting yourself up for success.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Incoterms, they're not just jargon. They're a powerful tool that can streamline your sourcing, minimize risks, and ultimately help your business thrive. So take the time to understand them, choose wisely, and enjoy the exciting journey of sourcing from Vietnam.
Absolutely. And remember, we're always here to cheer you on. Feel free to reach out with questions or share your sourcing stories.
We love hearing how you're using Incoterms to navigate international trade like pros. Until next time, happy sourcing.